Okay, new recording started. Let's go. Battle, battle. All right, so far so good with the hamburger stuff. I'm already on the second one too. Nice. All right, we need additional coins if we're gonna do lots of rerolls and get the hamburger fully upgraded, which is my primary goal. So yeah, coins is good. All right, all good. Crit damage or attack speed. I should take something. I think attack speed. Crit damage is, obviously crits do a lot of damage, but they don't happen that often. So, uh, I'm not that concerned with the crits being incredible. But the attacks happening faster is really awesome. Oh my god, it's happening! Super Burger! An attack bonus of 6. 3-second cooldown. Alright, this thing does not impress me that much, but whatever. I guess it's pretty good. Guess I don't have to keep it. I'm planning to try and keep it for this round at least, just to experience the joy of the stuff. Yeah, looks like there's oddly nothing. Oh no, there is this. I might need the extra glove. Yeah, this. There. And actually, since we have space, we might as well throw another hamburger in. Okay, we want to push luck, obviously. Um, that's it. Yeah, we'll do it this way. It's okay. I only have two weapons. I'm not used to so few weapons, but I do have the coins also. The coins are real fast, and the fire. So in a way, it becomes like four weapons. I have two defenses, two weapons, and two damage increasers. Okay, I feel like I need to. Okay, yeah, this is okay. That's what I do. I really gotta. Yeah, okay, yeah, I got it right. Now I have three weapons, which feels better. Let's. We're about to fight an anomaly. Let's re-roll a little. Ah, I don't like how this is going. Maybe I should put the ice ball there. Okay, at least I can do this with that. Yeah. There's one more. Pretty confident with the shield. That'll be okay. I don't think I need the med kit. But yeah, it's not. Yeah, I can. Okay. I kind of like having the two burgers working together to like pump my damage up though. All right, it's not worth it though. It's not. No, let's give it a shot. Yep, the armor is really good. Okay, not bad. Let's just keep going. These anomaly levels are like annoying. I mean, they're just too easy.
And the store sold over $100,000 worth of Mansell's collection. So arguably, the creditors had to have known what the store was selling, and that exception probably applies. But like Leonard says, if you're ever in this situation, file the UCC1 notice. Now, regardless, a successor operator or
Legal Eagle talking
franchisor
about the
taking possession of
bricks
a
and many
retail
things
store
controversy.
ordinarily requires only those ownership rights held by the franchisee. And because the consignment agreement expressly provided that title to unsold sets remained with Mansell until they were sold, the franchisee possessed only a contractual right to market and sell the goods. It did not have ownership of the goods themselves. And the seizure of the store by either BAM Corporate or the next owner transferred the possession of that collection, but probably not the title. Now, the starting point is the written consignment agreement executed on November 22nd, 2023 between Brian Mansell and the Gormans. And Section 4 says, quote, consigned merchandise shall remain the property of Mansell until sold. That means that the store only had the right to market and sell the property, not to confiscate it and keep the profits. And Section 5 reinforces that interpretation. It placed responsibility for, quote, shortages, loss, or damage on the store while the property remained under its control, which is more consistent with custodial possession than ownership. So, if the original franchisee did not own the collection, the next question is whether BAM or successor franchise operations nevertheless acquired ownership through the franchise termination process. Now, BAM Corporate says it finalized a business and asset purchase agreement with Joshua Johnson and Brandon Best on March 27, 2025, and that their company, Baker Briggs, operated as replacement franchisees, that it assumed none of Law's obligations, and that Johnson and Best were never parties to Mansell's consignment. But the Gormans countered that the new operators were selling from the seized inventory as early as November 15, 2024, which is more than 4 months before the asset purchase. And they say that Corporate transferred the store inventory and goodwill without ever providing them with an inventory appraisal or accounting. Reckless Ben later asked Johnson about this, and here's what he said. And now I finally understand the legal loophole that Josh is using to get away with this. It's probably the stupidest loophole I've ever heard in my entire life. Josh is claiming that it's not his name on the contract, it's the previous owner's, which makes no sense because in the security camera footage, he tells the previous owner that he's going to be the one taking over the contract now. I guess this is some sort of just contract loophole he's trying to use to steal the world's largest Lego Star Wars collection. Were you going to take it over from the previous owner, right? Yeah, it is. Now, there are several points to make here. If Best and Johnson were selling Mansell's consigned sets from November 15, 2024, if they were doing so before any asset purchase existed, they probably had no colorable claim to ownership at all. And even after they signed a franchise agreement with Briggs and Minifix Corporate on March 27, 2025, BAM Corporate still could not convey title to property that it never had. And an asset purchase doesn't necessarily cure that problem. It documents the disposition of property that was never BAM's to sell. And the assertion that they assumed no obligations contradicts their other claims. BAM and its operators cannot simultaneously disclaim the consignment and also retain and sell the consigned property. If Johnson and Best assumed none of the consignment obligations, then it had no contractual right to Mansell's goods.
Exactly.
Yet they may have continued to sell Mansell's goods. Now, knowledge is also an important issue here, but it definitely seems like everyone involved had actual knowledge of the fact that someone else owned these sets. And generally, a transferee cannot receive greater ownership rights than the transferor possessed. And this is summed up in one of those Latin phrases you learn in law school, nemo dat quoed non habet, or one cannot give what one does not have. And applied here, BAM Corporate and its new franchise owners could only seize or receive those rights that actually belonged to the Gormans. So if the franchisee owned fixtures, inventory, goodwill, or contractual rights, those assets could transfer upon termination. But if the franchisee merely possessed third-party property under consignment agreement, seizure of those premises would not ordinarily extinguish the original
We are
owner's
done.
title. So in practical terms, the taking control of a building containing someone else's property does not automatically transform that property into the successor's assets. And a landlord who retakes these premises does not become the owner of the tenant's belongings merely because those belongings remain inside. And similarly, a warehouse purchaser ordinarily does not acquire title to goods owned by warehouse customers simply because those goods remain in storage. A contract for storage is a bailment rather than a sale. Okay, so
Alright, I could get triple on this. Only the idea I am going to go ahead and just do it.
But the other question is, what legal obligations did BAM
It wasn't as
Corporate
much
or
as I hoped,
successor
but yeah,
operators
it's fine.
assume when they took possession of the store and its contents? Will Oregon recognize principles of bailment?
Compared to the
For example, a party
challenge,
entrusted
it
with
was fine.
possession of another's property assumes duties of reasonable care in return. And that
Alright,
means
we
that
finally
if the
got the
new operators,
hamburger
Johnson and Best, inherited the
maxed
Mansell
out.
collection, they likely stepped into at least a custodial role. That
Feels
means
good.
that once they had notice of competing ownership claims, treating the property as unquestionably their own became legally riskier. And the concept of notice is particularly important here because BAM Corporate and its successor operators allegedly received multiple forms of notice about the consignment agreement, including statements from Crystal Law on the night of the seizure, identifying yellow stickers marking certain sets, inventory spreadsheets, direct communications from Mansell, a formal demand letter from Mansell's attorney, and photographic evidence of specific inventory. And if proven, such facts could tend to support the argument that BAM Corporate and the new operators knew or had reason to know that at least some disputed property may have belonged to Mansell. And it's likely at that point they have the legal obligation to take care of that property, insure it, and probably return it to Mansell when he asks to. And under those circumstances, continuing to sell, withhold, or transfer the Star Wars sets is a serious problem. And so, now we get to the first lawsuit. And no, it's not by the Mansells. Actually, Law and Gorman, the original franchise owners, filed a lawsuit with 12 causes of action. And as we talked about, this lawsuit alleges that Bricks and Minifig Corporate did not turn over the lease or bank account, making possible for the Gormans to effectively operate their franchise, and thus they claim that they are absolved from any debts or infractions that they incurred because the corporate made it impossible for them to comply. But what about Mansell? What claims would he have? Under Oregon law, the strongest claim they have is probably conversion, which generally occurs when a party intentionally exercises dominion or control over another person's property in a manner seriously inconsistent with that owner's rights. And Oregon courts have described conversion as wrongful interference with ownership interests sufficient to justify requiring payment of the property's full value. In plain English, conversion is the civil version of theft. You can't sue someone for theft, you would sue them for conversion. However, in Oregon, the tort of conversion requires more than just mere interference with another person's property. If a party merely possessed the property temporarily or negligently mishandled it, that conduct may fall short of conversion under Oregon law. However, where a defendant exercises ownership-like dominion over another person's property, like selling consigned goods, refusing to return them upon demand, or incorporating them into store inventory, or otherwise treating them as its own, the interference is more likely to qualify as conversion because it substantially impairs the owner's right to control that property. So to the extent that the new operators retain sole or exercise dominion over Mansell's consigned Lego inventory without authorization, Oregon law supports a potential claim for conversion. But it's also a huge factual dispute about how much property that is and the value. At base, it's way less than $200,000, and I think at this point it's undisputed that it's less than $100,000.
Alright, anomaly
but
mode.
It might be
Let's
as
go.
low as $6,200. And in fact, as the police reported,
No
some of
anomaly
the sets
mode.
were
Let's play
returned,
the
including
normal
the
game.
incredibly expensive Cloud City set, which Crystal Law had in her possession at her home.
I don't know.
rather than at
Maybe
the
I should
store.
take
The strongest
like the
defense
double
available to
coins
BAM likely
or
arises under Article 9
the item
of the Uniform
upgraded.
Commercial Code, which is
Starting
codified
item
in Oregon law.
upgraded
And
doesn't
because
sound
commercial
great.
consignments
Oh,
sometimes
like gives
operate
you your
differently from
max
ordinary
level though.
property disputes,
Even
because the
so,
UCC protects
it's not that
creditors
great.
who might reasonably
Free
believe goods
revive.
displayed in a store
Probably
belong
not
to that
enough
store.
really
And
to
that makes sense.
survive.
Imagine you're buying a store and the seller of the store says
Like if
you
you're
can have
losing,
everything
the
that's
free revive
inside of
won't
that
save
store
you.
as part of the sale. You, as the buyer, would assume that they have title to everything that's in that store. So if a consignor fails to perfect the security interest
Nope,
by
I
filing
messed up.
appropriate financing statements, competing creditors can sometimes obtain
try
priority
again.
over consigned goods. However, here, several complications weaken that defense. First, Oregon's version of the UCC contains exceptions where the merchant is generally known by creditors
Wait,
to
am I on the right
substantially
level?
engage in selling
I feel like I might
goods
have messed
of
up and
others.
gone to the wrong
Whether
level.
Bricks and Minifigs generally or this particular store qualifies would probably be a factual question. But here, the franchise's
Yeah,
business
we're good.
model of acquiring, trading, and reselling third-party Lego collections would probably complicate the
I'm gonna
reliance
discuss
on
again.
creditor protection principles.
Guess my better
And second,
judgment.
these rules generally protect creditors who are misled about ownership. If BAM Corporate or the new franchise owners had actual knowledge of the consignment arrangement or a clear reason to know that the goods belonged to Mansell, and here it seems like they did, the equitable rationale for the rule becomes weaker. And third, even if priority rules complicated title disputes between creditors and consigners, they would not necessarily eliminate obligations concerning identified third-party property once possession and notice existed. But what body of law actually governs whether a successor Bricks and Minifigs operator or Bricks and Minifig Corporate, the franchisor, become responsible for their predecessor store's consignment obligations? Well, franchise law would be the starting point, but neither federal law or state law directly answer to that question. The FTC governs the franchisor's pre-disclosure obligations to a prospective franchisee, but it's silent on
What
whether
to
the
do?
franchisee inherits the legal obligations
The
of the
knife is the
predecessor.
weakest one,
Some
right?
states have entire codes of law to define the relationship between franchisors and franchisees, but it looks like Oregon's laws governing franchises are pretty narrow. They focus on ensuring that the franchisor doesn't make misrepresentations obligations to its franchisee. So that means we have to look at state law doctrines. The default rule under Oregon law is that the party which purchases a business does not automatically assume the seller's liabilities. So if a successor purchased the store's assets, they would not necessarily inherit the
I want that
consignment
large
agreement.
bag.
And that's because contracts generally require privity. That is, you can only sue parties who actually signed and were parties to that contract. And it looks like the new franchise owners, Brandon Best and Joshua Johnson, tried to rely on that fact that they did not sign the consignment agreement. That agreement was between the original Bricks and Minifigs franchise owned by Lon Gorman, the BAMF Salem 1 LLC on the one hand, and Mansell on the other. But that doesn't mean that the new owner gets to seize Mansell's property either, because there are, of course,
I'm getting beat up
for example,
badly.
if the successors, Johnson and Best, or the franchisor, expressly or implicitly assumed those liabilities, or if the sale is a mere continuation of the predecessor business, or if the purchase was a de facto merger, then they would assume the assignment contract. And you can see why this has to be the law, right? Otherwise, the franchisor would have the ability to, one, weird trick their way out of liability by just terminating the franchise and setting up an exact new one in its place. And some of the facts indicate that Bricks and Minifigs Corporate and or the new owners intended to take over that consignment. Remember, there was that discussion with McAllister where he said the company was assuming responsibility for the consignment agreement or something to that effect. Now, I think that statement is sort of ambiguous as to whether they mean Bricks and Minifig Corporate or the new franchisee or whoever. But if true, that's a pretty direct statement. And if the court found that Bricks and Minifigs Corporate or the new franchise assumed responsibility for the consignment agreement, then of course they must live up to those obligations. They have to ensure the Star Wars sets, pay Brian his cut, allow him to inspect, and return the sets to him upon his request. But even if the court found that they didn't assume all of the Gorman's underlying legal obligations, then the successors still don't arguably have title to the Mansell's collection. Unless you get into one of those exception to the exception situations where a bona fide successor does not have knowledge of the underlying obligations and doesn't have to assume them. But Bricks and Minifigs Corporate has argued that consignments violated franchise policy or were unauthorized under the franchise agreement. So we took a look at the Bricks and Minifigs 2003 franchise agreement, which does not say that stores can't use consignment, quote, subject to our standards, specifications, and approval, if we so require. You may also offer the following products and services. Consignment services. That's just on the first page. And the franchise agreement template reiterates that on the first page, quote, additionally, franchisees may also offer consignment services. And Reckless Ben states in an update that Crystal Law provided the actual franchise agreement that she signed, which explicitly allows consignment agreements. Now, additionally, there are 4 references to consignment in these documents, and none of them are an outright prohibition. And
I'm in trouble. I'm dying here.
Corporate outlawed consignment agreement, that agreement only addresses the
Be quiet for a second. I need to think. Okay. Oof. I don't want to pay 2 gems for to get myself out of trouble. I'd rather just die. But it's looking like that's what's going to happen. Alright, at least I can have another glove. Instead of what? Instead of the hammer? This will heal me more. There we go. Yes. It ain't, you know, it ain't perfect, but we're trying. Oh my god. No, thanks. No, no. 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 Get me out of here. Oh my god. Let's do 3 levels on anomaly mode. Anomaly mode is easy right now. We haven't gotten to the hard part in that. Should I play as a different character? At least it would change things up a little, you know? Okay, so I haven't got to level 12, I guess. Level 12 I can wear that. The level 12 and the level 21 thing are too similar. It's like the same outfit. She just gets a little older. And she gets a rainbow feather. She comes out of the closet. I can unlock this for 300 gems. That's a lot, though. Very cute outfit, though. I'm tired. I don't know if I'm up for this anymore. Uh, okay, so where yep.
Relationship between Bricks and Minifigs and the Gormans, not the ownership of the Star Wars collection. The franchise agreement was a contract between Bricks and Minifigs Corporate and the franchisee, but it's also possible that both the Gormans and Bricks and Minifigs are telling the truth. It's entirely possible that the Gormans signed a franchise agreement to allow them to engage in consignments, but then it's also possible that a later franchise agreement that corporate would have required them to sign outlawed that particular practice. But I don't think that would be controlled. Whatever franchise agreement is operable, that's a contract between Bricks and Minifigs and the franchisee. Mansell was not a party to it, and his rights are independent of the consignment agreement and relate to the underlying ownership of the collection. A franchise rule
I'm in so much trouble.
might justify terminating the franchise
All right.
relationship, but it still doesn't mean that corporate gets to own
Let's do it. Plain
stuff
sight.
that the franchise doesn't own.
Anomaly level.
That's just an issue that will probably be settled by
No.
a court or an arbitration. At a later date, Bricks and Minifigs filed a motion to enforce an arbitration clause in the litigation that the Gormans filed. But either way, I don't think that argument automatically transforms third-party property into franchisor property. To illustrate that principle, if a franchisee violated policy by storing a friend's vehicle on business premises, the franchisor could discipline the franchisee and terminate the agreement. But absent some independent legal mechanism, the franchisor would not become the owner of that vehicle. And I think the same logic would apply here. But just because it might not be worth filing suit and actually litigating an entire lawsuit, that doesn't mean you shouldn't hire a lawyer. Everyone should have hired a lawyer here. This is a perfect example of what a lawyer can do informally. They can send a letter, a cease and desist letter. They can negotiate an inspection so that people can see which sets are left over. They can ask to see the receipts so that people can do an auditing of what was sold and what was not. That's what lawyers are for. They don't have to just file a lawsuit. And it's also a perfect example of why you should never engage in self-help, which we're going to talk about when we talk about Reckless Ben. Doing things on your own is a recipe for disaster. So at this point, you might be thinking, okay, if Brian Mansell believed a six-figure Lego collection had effectively vanished into a franchise collapse, why not just get sued? Well, the boring answer is also the real one. Litigation is really expensive. By the time the Marion County District Attorney declined criminal charges, Mansell had already spent months trying to get his collection back through phone calls, documentation, police reports, inventory spreadsheets, photographs, certified letters, and lawyers. And suing a franchise system, successor operators, or multiple defendants across state lines is not cheap. And as far as I can tell, I'm not even sure who's at fault as between the new franchisor, Bricks and Minifig corporate, or maybe both of them. And of course, even if you think you're right, civil litigation comes with an ugly catch. You can be completely correct and still lose financially. We've been talking about the $200,000 value of the Legos, but of course that's not the value of the remaining Legos any way you slice it. So instead of filing suit, the Mansells appear to have gone in a very different direction. They reached out to the internet. And that's where things got weird. Enter Reckless Ben. But that's gonna have to wait for the next video, because you could write an entire law school curriculum on all of the actions that Reckless Ben took to publicize this whole event. And that's gonna be the subject of our next video. Now, all this highlights why it's so important to get a great lawyer when you're dealing with your own case. Now, after I started this channel, every week I get hundreds of comments and emails
Alright,
from
looks
viewers
like there's
who are
nothing to
dealing
use here.
with legal problems. So they'd
Let's
ask,
go.
can you help me find a lawyer? How do I know if this attorney is any good? And there's a massive gap in our justice system. It's that people don't know how to find the right lawyer for their specific situation. They're scared, they're overwhelmed, and they end up doing nothing or hiring the first attorney who calls them back. And that really bothered me. So I started to wonder, what if there was a different way? What if we had built a law firm that actually lived up to the values that I talk about on this channel? Transparency, accessibility, putting clients first instead of chasing billable hours. A firm where you don't need to pay anything up front, and your lawyers only get paid if you do to maximize your opportunity for justice. So a few years ago, I decided to fix that problem. I decided to start my own personal injury law firm, and honestly, it wasn't an easy choice. But I realized I was in this unique position. I had this platform, this community, and the experience. Not to get rich, trust me, there are easier ways to make money than starting a law practice. But we did it because access to justice shouldn't be a luxury. Because finding the right legal representation shouldn't feel like playing Russian roulette with your future. And when you work with my firm, you're not just getting a lawyer. You're getting a team that understands that behind every case is a real person with real stakes. If we can't represent you, or you're in a state where we don't practice, we'll take the time to try to match you with an attorney in my personal network of lawyers, a national network of some of the best lawyers in the country who actually specialize
All right,
in
let's
going
get.
through
Let's go.
located right where you are, not
Oh, I
just
should
whoever
re-roll.
happens
That's
to
good that I
be real.
re-rolled.
So if you're dealing with a
Even
personal
though it
injury, a
didn't
car
didn't
crash,
turn
an
out good,
egregious
but
sexual harassment,
it
a
was
social
good
security
instinct.
workers' comp issue, give us a call at the number on screen or click on the link below. Now, I
Yeah,
can't represent
nothing's
everyone
coming.
that watches this channel. I wish I could, but what I can do is make sure that when you need legal help, you have somewhere to turn to that you can trust. So whether it's me handling your case or the incredible attorneys we partnered with, you'll get the same principles of honesty and education that we bring to every video. And if you're dealing with a legal issue and you're not sure where to start, check out the link in the description.
Let's do at least one more.
Find not just a lawyer, but the right lawyer for your situation. Because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. Making sure that when life gets complicated, you don't have to face it alone. Which is why when you need a lawyer, you don't just need a legal team, you need the Eagle team.
One more. Okay, I like that. All right, let's go. Battle time.
So you're the legendary thing that everybody's trying so hard to catch.
Trophy earned, Vampire Lord.
Okay, first of all, one of y'all dead. Who's asking? You just give yourself away. And what do I say? What do I say after that? Stupid. At least try to act like you don't know English or something. Be more creative. Like, sorry. I don't speak with. Never mind. I'm getting on top. To answer your question, I'm the guy that's gonna catch you. Oh, really? With what evidence? Oh, there's plenty of evidence. Like what's in the pocket?
Damage.
This bottle. Boy, with a simple water bottle and incriminate. Check it. You're smarter than you look.
Okay, damage.
But anyways, I'm reason to believe that you tried to steal a key to a safe.
Okay,
Millions upon millions of dollars.
yeah, let's take the damage.
However, I swapped that key with Manhattan before you got to it. Impressive.
Why did it rattle?
But I expected that. Really? Yes, really. I expected you to swap that out with this banana. So, I managed to steal the key before I stole it. And then plant it into the banana that you would swap it with. The one that you have is a fake replica key that I made. Funny you should say that. Because I knew you would make a fake key. So I stole the fake key that you made. And swapped it with the real one.
This is so terrible. All right, let's focus on the game. Uh, I don't want to watch this. I want to watch something. This is pretty funny though. I want to watch something informative. Lego Vigilantes.
Investigation is coming. It's 51 minutes at this point.
It's Coffeezilla.
The McNabbs, Reckless Ben, the Gormans, everybody. And honestly, I've got a lot of new stuff. Pictures no one has ever seen before. Inventories of what was there that night. But while I was doing something,
Wait, so did I finish the Eagle Team one? I did, right? Yeah, I guess that was the end of it. I thought there would be more for some reason.
which kind of disturbed me. And I'm not going to be able to have the chance to address it in my main videos. I want to address it here while we're editing that mammoth of an investigation. But I wanted to start by saying I am heavily involved in this whole thing. I want to give you the perspective that I'm saying, oh, nobody's allowed to be interested in this case. No one's allowed to ask questions. That's not what this is. I was leaked videos from inside Rick's and Minifigs stores, other locations that have nothing to do with like the Reckless Bin missing
Battle.
Lego collection. People are going into them trying to be vigilantes and trying to get justice, by going up and harassing store employees. And in one case, I'll show you, they actually get in a physical fight with not someone from the store, not someone involved, but just a random guy who's trying to ask them to leave. It just devolves into a huge fight. And so I just wanted to talk about this. Please don't go into your local Lego store and get in a fight over this. It's not worth it, okay? And I am as interested in this case as anyone else. I barely slept on this few nights talking to all these people. But the kind of behavior we're about to see, I mean, guys, you're not Reckless Bin, right? Let's just admit it. A lot of these people, you can just see they're trying to channel that energy, but you're not that guy. You're at the wrong store. Okay, that's it. Let's start there. You're talking to the wrong people. You're fighting, physically fighting with the wrong people. These people are having a
It's embarrassing.
floor of a Lego store over another guy's Lego collection. That has nothing to do with any of what you're about to see. So, anyways, I just wanted to go over a bit of this footage. There's 2 clips that I want to address. Here's the first video that I saw. Glory house in this.
That's
for
crazy.
privacy reasons, and also because there are children in some of these videos, and I just want to make sure they don't get caught up in this. So a guy with sunglasses and a sleeveless shirt walks into a random Bricks and Minifigs from what it looks like, and decides to tell one of the store employees, hey, go look at Reckless Bin's YouTube channel. Go, as if he probably hasn't seen it already. And as if he has anything to do with it. I mean, I don't know, what's this guy supposed to do? Oh, gee, I saw the video, and now I'm going to make everything right. And I'm going to give back the collection. How did this guy do? This guy doesn't know anything. What are you doing? This looks ridiculous. What?
All right, that was easy.
I swear people are using the fact that, the cops have behaved awfully. A lot of people have behaved awfully in this situation. They pretend it's like the day of the purge and they can live out their fantasy. Going up to random store employees and saying, you work for Trump, bro. Like, no, they literally don't. They work for a Lego reseller. I mean, let's be honest about what this is. This is crazy. But that's really not what made me make this video. The reason I wanted to make this video is the second leak I got from another store location. In it, you'll see 3 people. One, in green, he came in to confront the manager. Up here is the store manager in blue, and over here we got our white knight. So he's going to be getting in a fight over Lego, but he didn't even work there. Like, he's going to get in a fight trying to defend the good name of Bricks and Minifigs, which, should be clear, I think is also stupid. You should not be getting in physical fights, no matter how ridiculous someone else is being at a store where they're trying to bring up YouTube. And don't get in fights. That's just kind of very silly. And you'll see that the White Knight actually is the first one to put hands on the instigator in this case. But regardless, everyone just comes out looking horrible in this. I am.
Okay, Desert Morning. Let's go.
So you can hear a little bit. He starts talking about something.
I'm tired.
You guys are liars. And then the guy responds, look, I'm going to trespass you. The other guy laughs and goes, yeah, do it. All right, so you can see the walk up, the hero's walk up. People like this always fantasize, intervening. He was kind of biding his time over by the Lego section. He overhears what's going on, and he decides he's going to stroll over and make it right. So our altercation really is one guy going, "You don't work here," and the other guy says, "Well, neither do you." This ain't gonna find the Legos. Brian Mansell's collection ain't in the store, guys. Okay? So I know we're all excited on getting to the bottom of it, but going about it this way just makes everyone in the situation look like fools. And if you're harassing people at their place of work, or you're trying to be the superhero and save your local, Lego store, it's just ridiculous. How you? Okay, come on. I don't know if you can hear it. The guy's like, okay. Okay, come on. Okay. Why don't know? Because it's not their issue. So I don't know if you just heard that, but he's like, oh, it's not their issue. It's the state. And the guy's like, oh, it's corporate. Again, right. Why are we doing this at a random Bricks and Minifigs franchise location? It's like being mad at the CEO of McDonald's. You go into your local McDonald's and throw over the tables. It's like, who do you think you're hurting here? I just wanted to speak with you.
What am I doing?
I know I'm gonna have to blur a lot of this. They're getting in some serious, brain damage in some of these hits here. A little CTE over a Lego store, guys. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. And actually, you can kind of hear a kid at one point talking in the background, like, what are they fighting? Just can you imagine getting in some giant fight, two adults in a Lego store, mostly for kids, right? Like, that's what Lego mostly are enjoyed by. Kids over a YouTube video about a completely different store.
Killing this. We want damage. We don't want a heavy boost or max
here, you
health.
can see what starts to be drips of blood falling from the guy in black's face. I mean, his face is jacked up from this fight. And now the employee is just getting him some paper towels. The top of his face is bleeding up there. And yeah, because I was sent this, I wanted to address it. It really has, again, nothing to do with Brian Mansell's collection. It has
So
not going to
embarrassing.
solve anything. So it really doesn't fit in a main channel investigation, like what, some random store footage. I just wanted to talk about it though, because again, we're working on it. It takes time, gathering all the facts, talking to everyone involved. But I wanted to call this stuff what it is. It's embarrassing. You're just another bad person in this situation if you behave like this. And even the guy who's like playing, superhero in the store, going up to the other guy and engaging and trying to put hands on the other guy, that also is just escalating things. I feel like this entire
I should have.
situation
I think I messed up
been
here.
a series of
I
unnecessary
forgot. I didn't notice that there was an anomaly.
So, that's very unfortunate.
Jesus
Obviously, people have been wronged in this
No,
situation.
thanks.
I'm working behind the scenes trying
I
to
should have.
make it
I
right.
should have re-rolled a few times there. I didn't notice the anomaly.
Going in like this, you're not going to find what you're looking for. At most, you're
I was
going to find
laughing at
maybe a little
the
bit of
Coffeezilla
brain
video.
damage, or we might all get brain damage watching you try to confront
Alright.
a local
I think that's it. I'm gonna stop here.
Got some drama
That's it.
on YouTube.
That was impetus for me to the impetus for me to stop playing him. I'm too tired to keep going.
Police department.
Why did it end like that? What? That was weird.
The Bricks and Minifigs. Because I was sent
This is not
I
the
wanted
an
to
official.
address it. It really
Oh,
has
it's not an official Coffeezilla video. This is Coffeezilla Extras thing. God damn it, that was annoying. So it didn't have the whole thing on it because it was not the official thing. It was like a fake coffee sale video.
I'm confused.
Anyway, I just will stop here anyway. So that's all, folks. Please like, subscribe, click the bell, leave a comment. Love you guys. Bye bye. Stop recording.